She drives the backroads like a ghost, quiet, invisible, forgotten. But when a face from her past shows up with a warning and a target on his back, everything unravels. What secret is this lone trucker hiding in her rig? And why is she suddenly being hunted by the very system that erased her? The truck rolled through the backroads of West Texas like a whisper, nearly invisible beneath layers of sun-bleached dust and desert wind. Matte olive panels. No license plate. No logos. Just a long-haul rig with a name, Havoc, etched in faint scratches on the passenger side door. Inside, Kelly Holt sat behind the wheel, her right hand lightly resting on the gearshift, her eyes steady behind dark-tinted sunglasses. To the people in the diner parking lots she passed, she was just another trucker. Maybe a little more serious, maybe a little quieter. Always alone. Never stayed in one place long enough to need a name. She paid in cash. Slept in the cab. Most didn't even see her face. They never noticed the ex-military stickers scraped off the bumper, or the strange array of switches and fiber optics laced across her dash, or the way she parked, facing out, always with a clear line of sight to the exits. Havoc wasn't a truck. It was a shield, a statement, a promise never to be caught off guard again. Kelly Maverick Holt had been officially dead for 9 years. There had been a mission somewhere over the border. Black Ops. No patches, no orders, no backup. A village burned. An ambush. A betrayal that cost half her unit their lives. Kelly survived, but barely. The higher-ups called it a tragic accident. Clerical error. A misfire. Then they buried her file, declared her Kia, and moved on. And Kelly vanished. She had just finished refueling outside a nowhere town called Loma Verde. The sun was starting to drop, bleeding orange across the hills. A radio crackled in the background, classic country. The station kept drifting out of range. She preferred it that way. That's when she saw the figure step out from behind the propane tanks near the edge of the lot. Limping, face covered in desert grime. Clothes worn, half of a military field jacket still hanging from one shoulder. And eyes, familiar, desperate, searching. Her fingers instinctively slid toward the holster under the dash. But then he said it. Maverick. Kelly's stomach twisted. That voice didn't belong in this world. It belonged to a memory soaked in blood and fire. Christian. He nodded once, then collapsed. Inside the cab, Christian lay stretched out on the bed behind the seats. His breathing was ragged. Kelly had cleaned his wounds, nothing fatal, just deep cuts and bruises. Someone had worked him over. Not for money, for information. When he finally spoke, his voice was hollow and flat. The way soldiers talk when they've gone too long without sleep or safety. They're using us. Vets, drivers, off-grid ghosts like you and me. They're running weapons, military grade, through private convoys. Hidden inside medical shipments, grain trucks, school supply donations. No one checks those routes. Kelly didn't answer. They got Noah. He started asking questions. Then he just disappeared. Same with Alvarez. Same with Briggs. He listed names like tombstones. All gone. All ex-special forces. All drivers now. Kelly stared out the window, her jaw clenched. Why come to me? Christian looked at her for the first time since he got in the truck. Because I didn't know who else was still breathing. And because of the name I heard tied to it. She didn't want to hear it. But she already knew what he was about to say. Valentine. The cab went silent. Even the hum of the engine seemed to fade. Valentine had been their superior. A handler. The kind of man who could look you in the eye, shake your hand, then send you into hell with half the intel you needed and a quarter of the support. Kelly had trusted him once. He was the one who gave the order on the mission that was supposed to kill her. And now he was there, running logistics. Kelly stood up, unlatched a hidden compartment beneath the bunk, and pulled out a black steel case. Inside were 3 things: a sidearm, a photo of her old unit, burned at the corners, and a folded flag. She stared at the case for a long time, then closed it. "You've got a place to stay tonight?" she asked. Christian looked up. "Not unless I sleep here." She nodded once. "Then stay low. We roll out at first light." That night, while Christian slept, Kelly sat in the driver's seat with the engine idling and the windows cracked to catch the dry wind. Her fingers traced the worn leather of the steering wheel, her thoughts a storm. She'd run for years, helping people quietly, keeping her head down. It had been enough. She never needed closure, never wanted revenge. But Valentine was still out there, smiling, profiting, using veterans as disposable tools again. And this time he'd made a mistake. He'd dragged her back in. The next morning, Kelly and Christian pulled out of Loma Verde at sunrise. The horizon glowed blood orange, casting long shadows across the dry, cracked asphalt. Christian had cleaned up, sort of, still limping but upright. His military jacket was gone, replaced by a denim overshirt and a faded trucker cap. He looked like 1,000 other drivers on the road. That was the point. They drove for hours, speaking little. Christian filled in what he could. Rumors, patterns, whispers passed between veterans at truck stops. The smuggling operation was smart, invisible. Loads were registered under clean carriers, flagged as humanitarian or government contracted. But Christian had traced at least 3 shipments to the same company. Horizon Cross Logistics, a new outfit with no real paper trail but connections deep in the defense sector. Kelly knew the name, not from war files but from whispered conversations. Horizon Cross was one of those companies that only existed when no one looked too closely. Their trucks moved things people weren't supposed to talk about. They were also owned by a man named Valentine Cross. They reached an old diner outside El Camino, the Rusted Fork. Once a stop for truckers, now it looked abandoned, but trucks still came and went. Too many, too often. And the building didn't look dead, it looked staged. Kelly parked across the lot, her rig half hidden behind a pile of rusted grain silos. Christian entered first, carrying a clipboard, posing as a confused driver with a misrouted load. Kelly waited in the truck, watching through a dash-mounted scope linked to a hidden camera embedded in Christian's belt buckle. Inside, Valentine appeared exactly as she remembered, just older. He wore a charcoal gray jacket over a black shirt, sleeves rolled tight against muscular forearms. His hair, once regulation buzzed, was now silvered at the sides. He walked with the same precise energy, the same too calm confidence. And when he saw Christian, his smile was wrong. It was recognition wrapped in charm, interest wrapped in calculation. He motioned for Christian to sit. Through the audio feed, Kelly heard everything. "So, your boss sent you? Dispatch out of Tulsa. Wrong route, wrong invoice. No one's answering." Valentine played along, casual and smooth. But he was testing Christian, asking for details no rookie driver would know. And Christian was slipping. Kelly muttered under her breath, "Get out, Christian. You're not cleared for this." Then she saw it through the scope. A man in the back room adjusting a panel behind the counter. Not a wall safe, a signal booster, real-time comms encryption. "It's a trap," she said aloud, and hit the ignition. But it was already too late. Christian stood to leave. Valentine stood with him, and for a moment it looked like the meeting would end peacefully. Then the kitchen door burst open. 2 armed men in plain clothes stepped out, tasers drawn. Christian spun to fight, but one shot dropped him instantly. Kelly slammed the gas pedal and roared toward the diner, throwing open the side door mid-turn. A flare launcher hidden in the fender spat red smoke across the lot. Chaos erupted. But before she could reach the entrance, Valentine stepped out, unarmed, but flanked by men in tactical gear. Behind them, Christian was already being dragged into a black van. Kelly had seconds to decide. She threw the rig into reverse, laid down a cloud of sand and smoke, and punched west out of the lot. Valentine didn't chase, but less than an hour later, the alert started pinging. Kelly pulled off the road, hiding beneath a narrow overpass as the desert wind howled around her. She scanned her GPS, it flickered. Her truck's comms were jammed. Her location was tagged. Then the message came through on the backup radio. Kelly Holt, fugitive, wanted for hijacking government property. Approach with caution. Her license number, her face, her rig, all flagged. They didn't just want her gone, they wanted her erased. She activated her emergency sublayer, off-grid tracking, encrypted CB access, analog backup systems. Then she switched on a frequency no one outside her old unit would ever find. It took 10 minutes before someone answered. A woman's voice, crackling with static and smoke. "You're burning your last bridge, Maverick." Kelly closed her eyes. "I need you, June." June Park had been their unit's communications engineer. After the betrayal, she vanished into the tech underground. Kelly hadn't spoken to her in years. But now, June was the only one who could counter Horizon's surveillance net. "They've buried your load manifest, tagged you for theft, and sent your face and rig description to every law agency south of Kansas. You've got less than 12 hours before drones pick you up. I need to vanish, and I need eyes on Christian." There was a pause. Then June laughed softly. "You always come back when things go nuclear. All right, you've got one favor left. Let's blow up a convoy." As dusk fell, Kelly's rig rolled toward the edge of the salt flats. There was no signal here. That was the point. June walked her through a full purge, scrambling transponders, swapping out fake license plates from a rotating vault in her trailer, even rerouting the engine's telemetry ID. Then came Phase 2. June activated a signal beacon tied to Kelly's last known location, and a decoy rig prepped months ago roared to life in a parking lot outside Tucson. Within minutes, 3 DHS drones locked onto the wrong truck. Kelly vanished. Again. But it wasn't over. That night, a message came through to her secure tablet. A GPS ping, coordinates, and a photo. Christian. Hands zip-tied, bloodied but alive, held in what looked like a warehouse lined with ammo crates and surveillance screens. Valentine's shadow in the background. Kelly stared at the image for a long time. Then she opened a drawer, pulled out a black combat vest, and clipped it over her shirt. She tightened the straps, checked the sidearm, and stepped out into the cold desert night. She wasn't running anymore. Now it was her turn to hunt. Dust rose in spirals as Kelly's rig sliced through a canyon road at dusk, the engine's rumble muffled beneath panels lined with sound-dampening foam. Havoc wasn't hiding anymore, it was hunting. Painted in matte gray thermal-resistant coating, its profile shimmered faintly under the dying sun like a shadow peeling off the landscape. Kelly adjusted the dials on her dash, switching from GPS to passive radar, muting digital footprints. Tiny flaps along the side of the trailer shifted, redirecting heat away from the axles. June's modifications worked. The rig was invisible to satellites for at least a 40-mile window. No drone pings, no digital signature, and that gave her time. In the back of the cab, maps were laid out over a metal crate. Old oilfield roads, border checkpoints, power lines. Scattered between them were files on missing veterans, men and women who'd vanished in places just like this, discarded like she once was. Each name stabbed like a reminder. This is what happens when no one fights back. Her burner phone buzzed. It was a message from June. "Got it. Warehouse. Coordinates incoming." Seconds later, the screen populated with a live overhead feed. A vast lot on the edge of a desolate industrial town. Shipping containers stacked like barricades. Armed guards pacing in irregular patterns. Thermal images showed cool zones, insulated holding rooms. One showed a figure slumped in a chair. Christian. Kelly exhaled slowly. Her fingers tightened around the wheel. But this wasn't a one-woman job. Not anymore. She reached out through encrypted CB frequencies, channels reserved for veterans used only in emergencies. One phrase, no context, "Ghost run. One night only. You in." One by one, the replies came. "I owe you. Let's finish it this time. For Briggs. For Alvarez." By nightfall, 5 rigs peeled off the interstate near an abandoned way station. Each truck was different. Some rusted, some clean, but all carried ghosts behind the wheel. Off-grid, erased, and deadly. They met in silence, using hand signals and chalk diagrams on trailer doors. Connor Spitfire Howard, demolition expert. Vanessa Sarge Marlowe, former squad leader, still wore her dog tags. Dom and Martin, twin brothers who'd driven convoy in Kandahar, now working auto hauls by day, recon by night. Kelly briefed them quickly. 2 assault paths, 1 entry point, 3-minute windows. We don't kill unless we have to. We extract Christian, copy whatever we can from the files, and burn the rest. This isn't just a rescue, it's exposure. Sarge narrowed her eyes. And if Valentine's there? Kelly didn't blink. Then we cut the leash from the top. The warehouse loomed like a corpse in the dark, its edges lit only by sodium floodlights and the eerie glow of oil fires in the distance. From a ridge above, Kelly watched through binoculars as Dom and Martin created the first diversion. One of their rigs swerved into a power pole a quarter-mile down the road. Sparks lit the sky, and half the warehouse perimeter went dark. Kelly took that cue. She hit the ignition. Havoc surged forward, silent, its tires pre-treated to mask sound over asphalt. As she approached, Connor launched a drone. Small, quiet, and laced with jammers that fried the guards' walkie signals. Sarge cut a hole through the perimeter fence, her shotgun hanging loosely by her hip. Let's bring our brother home. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of crates, and corridors of surveillance tech far too advanced for a cartel. Night vision cameras, facial recognition. But Kelly's visor ran a mirrored overlay June had supplied countermapping. The security system couldn't see them. They found Christian in a holding room wrapped in soundproof insulation. He was awake but barely, bloodied, dehydrated, zip-tied to a steel chair. When he saw Kelly, his lips barely moved. Told you, I'd find you. She knelt down, cutting him loose. You never shut up long enough to hide. Sarge secured the door while Connor ran a flash drive into a surveillance terminal. What he found made him stop cold. Photos of every one of them, including those who died in that last mission 9 years ago, including Kelly. The files were dated after their supposed deaths. One image was marked, Exfil not authorized, TOB contained. Under that, a signature, Lieutenant Colonel Francis Blackwell, their commanding officer, the man who sent them into the kill box. Valentine's just the cleanup, Connor whispered. This goes higher. Footsteps echoed outside. Valentine's voice, cool and calm, spoke just beyond the steel wall. I know you're in there, Kelly. You always liked playing the ghost. But ghosts don't leave footprints. And you've left plenty. Kelly didn't answer. Instead, she handed the flash drive to Christian, signaled the others to the east exit, and opened a panel on the wall. Behind it was a fuel valve, exposed, pressurized, and waiting. She turned the knob. Tick, tick, hiss. Then she threw a timed flare through the west door. The explosion didn't destroy the warehouse, but it blew the south wing apart, collapsing corridors and sending Valentine's men into chaos. Kelly's crew escaped through a side tunnel, old mining shafts repurposed for smuggling. Above them, the night roared with fire and sirens. They didn't stop until dawn. Outside an abandoned radio station deep in the hills, they debriefed. Connor dumped the files onto a laptop. Dozens of missions, names, timelines. Smuggling tied to Blackwell. Horizon Cross was just the latest cover. The whole operation had one purpose: bury the past. And anyone who remembered it. Kelly sat alone on the hood of her truck, the weight of truth pressing down. This wasn't just personal anymore. It never had been. She wasn't the target. She was just next on the list. The storm moved in like a curtain, thick sheets of rain trailing low-hanging clouds, thunder rolling across the Texas mountains like cannon fire. Kelly Holt leaned against the hood of her rig, wind tugging at her jacket, her eyes locked on the narrow pass ahead. The road carved through a cliff face, with sheer drop-offs on one side and jagged rock on the other. No shoulder, no escape, just one way through. And today that road belonged to her. Behind her, parked in strategic angles, were 4 rigs, her crew. Connor, Sarge, the twins. Engines off, hazard lights blinking in the distance like a silent warning. Turn around. But Valentine wouldn't turn around. She'd made sure of that. 12 hours earlier, Kelly had hijacked one of Horizon Cross's own convoys. It was carrying medical supplies, or so the papers said. What it actually held were crates of rifles and encrypted drives. She didn't need the cargo. She needed the bait. She left the trailer in a truck stop north of the pass, Let word leak through known informants. Valentine took it personally. Now he was coming in hard 3 cars, 1 rig following behind. He was in the lead car, according to June, who tracked their comms from a signal jamming station built out of a decommissioned rest stop nearby. They're coming in fast, June said through Kelly's earpiece. Less than 5 minutes. Copy, Kelly replied. Time to cut the brakes. She climbed back into Havoc, flipped a series of hidden switches, and activated the broadcast relay. A small radio tower unfolded from the rear chassis, piercing the sky like a spine. It was connected to a CB frequency that hadn't been used since the Gulf War, an emergency wave designed for convoy-wide alerts. It still worked. She opened the mic. Her voice was low, steady. Breaker 19, this is Maverick. If you're on this frequency, you've been used. You've hauled cargo you weren't supposed to. You've watched brothers disappear. Today, you're gonna hear why. Valentine's convoy came into view, headlights slicing through rain and mist. The SUVs slowed when they saw the blockade. But Kelly didn't move. Instead, she revved her engine once, then flicked on the floodlights rigged to her grille. The full might of Havoc roared to life. Valentine stepped out, flanked by men in tactical gear. You've got 5 seconds to clear the road. Halt, he shouted over the storm. Or we take you down. She didn't answer, just pressed the switch that locked the CB mic open. Every trucker within a 60-mile radius was now listening. Valentine didn't realize he was already on air when he stepped closer, face twisted in anger. I should have buried you the first time, but I'm glad you're here. Makes cleanup easier. Cleanup, Kelly said calmly. You mean the murders? The disappearances? The ghost convoys? He smirked. You think any of these people care? They get paid. They keep quiet. You're not a hero, Kelly. You're a relic. But the CB crackled with a voice. We're listening. Another. We care. And then more. A chorus of voices. Veterans. Truckers. Dispatchers. A brotherhood that stretched across counties and states. Kelly saw Valentine falter. Tell them, Cross, she said. Tell them about Colonel Blackwell. About the missions. The weapons. The soldiers you sold out. Rain poured down in sheets. Valentine looked around. No backup. No helicopters. Just a growing wall of headlights forming behind her. Trucks pulling in, lining up along the road. Dozens. Then hundreds. He cracked. They were loose ends. You were all disposable. I did what I was told. By who? Blackwell. He built Horizon. We just followed orders. The CB stayed open. The silence that followed felt like thunder. Kelly stepped forward, soaking wet, hand resting on the holster at her side. And now everyone knows. The radio went dead. Then sirens. Other cars poured in. Not Horizons but federal agents. All alerted by June the moment Valentine confirmed Blackwell's involvement. They moved fast. Valentine reached for his gun, but hands grabbed him before he could draw. Cuffed. Read his rights. His men surrendered without a fight. They'd heard the transmission too. Kelly stood motionless as the agents passed her, nodding once to the man in charge. We've been looking for this for 3 years, he said. You just lit the match. But Kelly was already walking back to her truck. By morning, the storm was gone. The road was clear. Trucks had scattered. The mountain pass, so full of heat and tension hours ago, felt like just another road now. Kelly drove until the sky turned pale gold, and towns became names on fading signs. She didn't stop, didn't speak. She'd done what she needed to, but the road never really ends. Weeks later, she pulled into a dusty town somewhere near the border. No name, no signal, just a diner, a water tower, and a single teenager sitting on a duffel bag by the edge of the road. He stood when he saw her, skinny, maybe 18, hair buzzed close, eyes sharp, nervous but focused. Heard you help guys like me, he said, nodding toward her truck. Guys the system left behind. Kelly didn't answer. Just reached across the cab and opened the passenger door. The kid climbed in. Didn't ask where they were going. Some roads don't let you walk away. Some promises don't let you quit. and Kelly Maverick Holt still had miles to go. This story reminds us that some ghosts don't haunt, they guard. If you were Kelly, would you risk everything again, or finally disappear for good? Tell us in the comments. And if this journey moved you, don't forget to give it a like, share, and subscribe to embrace the journey, where every road leads to something unforgettable. See you in the next video.